got a few graphics here for us. We'll go ahead
Yeah.
and take a look at those. And I think we talked earlier about the undefeated teams, and here we go again.
Yeah. And what we try to do each week is bring us up to date on what's happening in the Big 12, and then certainly focus on what happened in the last game for WVU and the opponent that's coming up. And we'll do that again this week. And this pattern we talked about last week is still there.
Yeah.
We got 5 Big 12 teams that are undefeated at 11-0 together. But then you have 11 Big 10 teams that are 7-19,
Yeah.
with 3 of those teams 0-3. So, what do you think of these? The WVU and Iowa State matchup is not here. Is there any one of those games that sort of sticks out to you that you find intriguing, or you think there might be an upset, or
Well,
what do you think?
I'm looking forward to the Arizona BYU game just to see, uh, you know, uh, Arizona, of course, was touted early on as one of the favorites to win the Big 12. BYU was not even mentioned that I remember. They are 5-0, so I'm anxious to see if BYU can keep it going and see just how good they really are. And also, I think that Kansas State Colorado game is interesting as well. Of course, we all know about the hoopla surrounding Colorado, Kansas State. You know, thought to be again one of the stronger teams in the conference. So I think that'll be interesting. That's at Colorado. That should be a really, really good matchup right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mickey?
Yeah, I agree 100%, Greg. You took the words right out of my mouth. That Arizona BYU game, I think, will be a very interesting game. And I don't know if it's being televised or not. Do you happen to know, Frank?
No, I don't. I can look it up, but I do not know.
Yeah,
My
because I
my
think
guess
that
is
would
they
be
all are.
a great one to watch. And I kind of look for Arizona to knock BYU from the roles of the unbeaten. And then, the K-State Colorado is going to be a real shootout. That's going to be a great game, I think, as well. Tough to pick a winner in that one for me. So, yeah, got a good lineup of games coming up. Utah, not as strong as everybody thought they were going to be. But we'll see what they do against Arizona State this weekend.
Yeah. In many ways, a lot of these are elimination games.
Yeah.
Arizona can't afford to go 3-3.
Mm-hmm.
You look at Arizona State, the question I think most fans are asking, and analysts too, how real is that team? I mean, if you saw that game last week, my son and I were watching it against KU. You just shrug your shoulders because if KU had that game,
Yep.
Arizona drove down the field and got a last-second touchdown. And Utah can't. So the loser of that game, the Friday night game, puts them in a difficult situation with 2 losses. At any rate, should be exciting. And then, as we always do, we look at the grades, turning to the Mountaineers, and here are the grades from last week's game against Oklahoma. And the way I was thinking about it, I'd say, well, probably everybody got high grades. It was such a dominating situation. But you'll see with the colors there, the highlights, Milam, who is obviously getting such great reviews, probably on the same path as Frazier to be a high draft pick, a 90.8, which
Yeah.
is really high. And Mulba on the defensive side continues to show up. Anything over 80 is good. Garrett Green, 85. Obviously, Hudson Clement continues to impress. What surprised me was Jack Samarco getting a high grade at defensive end, along with Cole Taylor, almost 80. And then you look at the offensive line, Remack and Williams, and in his press conference on Monday, Coach Brown emphasized how well Tomas is playing. But then on the defensive side, Ben Cutter in particular, a little bit surprising there, as well as Sean Martin. And then the right guard, that's the lowest on the defensive side. And he was also low in the in the KU game. So 52, both in the 52 area. And I was shocked at Reed Carrico. Now, he didn't play the previous week against KU, but 35.8 is pretty low. And then you can see the other ones. And Brown also talked about, and I'll stop with this, in his press conference, how impressed he was with the tackling. He said, this is the best tackling game we've had this year. And 90.1 is awfully good. Let me stop there and get your thoughts, guys.
Yeah, I thought definitely the tackling was better. I think that's obviously something they emphasized during the week off, and yeah, some of these you see are kind of surprising. I mean, when you watch the game, I watch Reed Carrico in particular. I just like the way he plays, so I watch him a lot, and I'm surprised that his score is low. But I think a lot of that may come from the fact that it has something to do with their pass defense and their drops in that pass defense, because I noticed a couple times that they threw the ball right over top of him and completed passes, which, the quarterback wasn't the greatest in the world and didn't complete a lot of passes, but I did see two that were completed over top of him where he didn't seem to drop far enough. So I'm assuming that might be where his low grade comes in. But I thought, these offensive linemen, I think when you see that, that tells you what our running attack looked like. And we totally dominated in the run game. And, that comes from, I think a little bit of both, that our offensive line played better. And I don't think Oklahoma State was nearly as good as most folks thought they might be.
Mm-hmm. Mickey?
Well, the stats on here I think I'm most impressed with. Number one is that our ranking on defense. I think we're in the top 10 in the country in rushing defense, if I'm not mistaken, which I don't think a lot of people really expected. And that's going to be key in Saturday night's matchup, I believe. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But, Wyatt just continues to perform at an outstanding level. And one of the things I talked about, Frank, and you chimed in on a couple of weeks ago on the show, is folks need to realize with this new offensive line, particularly with Zach leaving as the leader of that line and going to the Steelers, it takes a few games to get on the same page. And I think that's happening. I mean, I see this team just now beginning to hit its stride. It's like a 100-yard dash. We're a little slow out of the block beginning, but when you look in retrospect, we lost 2 games to 2 teams that are 10-0, Penn State and Pitt. Now we're playing another one against a team that's 5-0. So, we win Saturday night, we're well on our way. And I think, we're just getting on that 100-yard dash. I think we're up to about the 30-yard line on that 100 yards. And we're just beginning to come into our own. It takes a little time. And 5 or 6 games, particularly with the week off, is what you need in order to start burning on all cylinders, if you will.
Yeah. And as we said on the well stated, Mickey, as we stated in the post-game show with Mike, it's clear that he developed those second line players during the off week, and they contributed. Here's a stat that I was stunned about. You may have heard this. I hadn't. That Oklahoma State on Saturday ran 45 plays. West Virginia had 31 first downs.
Yeah.
Right.
Now that is an indicator of domination. But the other thing that we've talked about, guys, there's still issues on special teams, particularly with kickoffs. We need to do a much better job getting touchbacks and also not kicking the ball out of bounds unless that's a strategy. And we'll talk about in a few minutes, but this is an area that Iowa State excels because they have one guy that runs their punts back and their kickoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that was interesting is Coach Brown said, is that Oklahoma State is a very difficult stadium to play in later in the day, especially if you're receiving the ball on the more open side of the field. And so he said Preston Fox did a terrific job catching punts because the sun was right in his eyes. But at any rate, what gives us hope is that we're seeing now the West Virginia team we saw in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
A lot of running, better defense, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it comes out if you look at the stat comparisons, which I'll put up right now, that just like with Oklahoma State, when we look at these stat comparisons last week, guys, it was hard to say, even though OSU was a favorite, that they were a prohibitive favorite. Excuse me. So if you look at Rocco Beck, which is, he's a great quarterback, really intelligent, really grown. Anthony's son, Anthony's going to be at the game on Saturday. Son starting for Iowa State. You look at those figures, then you look at Garrett Green, and they're very comparable. The thing that frightens me about Iowa State, and it's a Matt Campbell signature when he can pull it off, because we're talking about recruiting at a place like Iowa State. And again, I have to, truth in advertising, I'm also an alum of Iowa State. Always root for West Virginia when the two teams play, but he's got triple threat at running back,
Yep.
Sampson, Jackson, and Hanson. And look at their numbers, they're almost the same. And he's got double threat receivers. Noel is the guy that receives punts, and Higgins. Look at their numbers. Again, almost the same. And they got the same thing on defense. They got multiple guys that they're big, and they run a very unusual defense, Mickey, which is 3 on the line and 3 in the,
three
at, the back,
safeties.
at the back end. And they are big, they're strong, they're nasty. Their offense using a lot of shifts. And then you have to keep a spy on Beck. He'll take off. But again, look at those numbers. Everything I've just said, Iowa State, as of Sunday, 51st in the country in total offense. Look at West Virginia, 38th, with 6.41 yards per play, about the same. And then if you look at defense, that's, I think, the area that we really got to be concerned about. Their defense is really, really good. Look at that yard per play, 4.41. West Virginia's getting better. There's no question about that. But it's their defense against our offense is going to be critical. Greg, and then Mickey.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that popped out at me was their total defensive rank, and so I think it's even more important that our offensive line and plays up to their standard, and then Garrett Green, uses his legs again like he did last week, and you get some of those design runs for him and that sort of thing, and then throwing the ball better. I think he's going to be. He's going to be the key, obviously, and I know that's usually the case. Is how your quarterback plays, usually how your offense plays, and I think I don't know that we'll have the same success running the ball with these guys as we did against Oklahoma State, but I think we got to try to establish that. I think we need to come out immediately and try to establish that run. It seems like when we run the ball well like that, it opens up so many more things. Our passing game is better. Garrett Green's better. Past run, whatever he's doing with it. It just seems like when we get that going, then we're a lot better offense. So hopefully, that's going to be a key. I think it's going to be our offense and how they perform.
Mm-hmm. Mickey?
Well, and to continue that line of thought, Greg, it's going to depend on how they perform against, I believe, Iowa State's defense is ranked number 6 in the country right now. So, I mean, that is a pretty staunch defense that you're going up against. And it's going to come down, as I mentioned, we'll get to this in a few minutes, but for me, it's going to be whoever wins the battle of the trenches on the offensive and defensive line is going to have a major impact on the way this game, comes out and decides who the winner is going to be.
Yep.
One of the things, again, from a player's perspective, Frank and Greg, we have not faced this defensive line up that Iowa State has. Every lineup has been a 4-man front on defense that we've played so far. And they only had 3 guys on the defensive line, and they have 3 safeties.
Mm-hmm.
And then a multitude of linebackers and other defenders out there. So
Mm-hmm.
when you're an offensive lineman, you're in your head, you've been playing one way for the first 5 games. Now all of a sudden there's a different defensive alignment, and you have to adapt. You have to learn new blocking assignments.
Right.
You have to be knowledgeable about, how that whole unit functions together. So I'm sure these guys have been watching a lot of film of Iowa State this week. I'm sure that the offensive line has been really drilling down on what the offensive linemen's assignments are going to be this week compared to what they've been doing so far this year. That kind of stuff internally in a game is critical to the way it comes out.
That's right. Hey guys, what I'm going to do before we get to our keys of the game and predictions, a number of assessments from viewers and predictions are stacking up. So let me go through this so we can see it. Joey is saying if WVU can keep the secondary in line against, really good wide receiver quarterback, and I would add running backs, we can get a turnover and play sound special teams, we win 27-24. If we slip up on one of those, we lose 24-21 or worse. Let me put and I put it in the chat, put a plug in for the simulation game that's on the network. It was extremely well done. Strongly recommend it. Just go to the Voice of West Virginia, the Voice of College Football under videos, and you will see it just released. A great video simulation. All I'll say, I don't want to spoil it, the simulation was a close game. And the commentary is incredibly good for a game that never took place.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Those things are fascinating.
Yeah. Shannon Miller, spot on. I feel ISU is a top 10 team. I worry more about shaky special teams.
Yep.
We're with you, Shannon. Penalties and turnovers, because the margin's going to be small. Good thinking, as always. Here's Mark saying 24-21, WVU. Timothy Green, who we look to for his prognostications. He's always sharp. My prediction is West Virginia 34, Iowa State 31. You see there are others here too. And by the way, I put this up earlier. Kelly said that to answer your question, Mickey, is that game's at 10:15 on ESPN, K-State, Colorado. Shannon had another comment here. For this weekend, everyone will be focused on offense and defense. Yes, special teams are great, and we could match them blow for blow and lose to a special team mistake. And Coach Brown talked about that this week. That one big run back, there was some missed assignments on a kickoff return. It ended up didn't hurt us, but let me see. Do you have any other? Let me see if there are any others. I think we got most. If we got all of the score predictions, I think we do. So that means we can go to ours, and we've got our keys to the game. And we'll start with Mickey.
Yeah, before we do, maybe we should pay tribute to the internal competition we're having and who the winner was last week, Frank.
Yeah, it was. I posted mine at 2 a.m. on Sunday, and could you believe it? I got the score right on the nose. But no, I lucked out. I told these guys by phone this week, every dog has its day. But the good thing is I like dogs. So at any rate, any rate.
Okay.
So, but I got my
win.
Thanks,
I
Mickey.
just want to. You're on the board. Now we got to get Greg on the board.
That's right.
That's right.
Well, I concur with what most folks are saying in the comments. I think the real key to this game is going to be the special teams, as well as how well our offensive line handles that unfamiliar 3-person front defense, and whether, as Greg said, we can establish the running game or not. But particularly so with the special teams. I think that's going to decide the winner of this game. You know, they have blocked 2 punts. One of them they took back for a touchdown, and we've had a punt blocked so far this year. So the kickoffs, you know, the punt and punt returns, we have to play at our very best in order to win this game. And having said that, I'm going to go out on a limb here. And I'm going to go with, you know, those things that you can't quite put your finger on. The statistics, there aren't any statistics to back up what I'm about to say. But when you take the combination of this being a night game at home in Morgantown, and we're breaking out the coal miner heritage uniforms, and with a raucous crowd that's just going to be going crazy in the stands, and my true belief that we're just now coming into our own, I think this team has underperformed tremendously so far this year. I think it's going to be a blowout. I see the Mountaineers winning 45-27.
All right, Mickey, got me fired up. That's for sure. Well, my keys again, I've already said it once. Garrett Green, keep on doing what he did in Stillwater. Keep it up with these legs and throwing the ball. Offensive line will have a lot to do with that. And if we can get that run game going, then that opens up our whole playbook. And we seem so much more effective whenever we do that. Defensive line got to keep some pressure on this quarterback. You know, that's the only way these defensive backs can survive. I don't know if you guys noticed all the new names in that defensive backfield Saturday, but it seemed like a lot of new players back there, and they did a respectable job. So hopefully we're turning the quarterback here. But I think it's crucial that our defensive line gets some pressure on the quarterback, you know, to help that defensive secondary. And you know, the hard part of this is they've not only got to get the pressure on the quarterback, but they got to stop that run game. It's pretty highly touted, so it's a double whammy. That makes it difficult too. And you know, several people have brought up the special teams. I hadn't really put much thought into that, but that is correct. That's something that could determine the game one way or the other. And we got to shore up some things on that for certain. Fortunately, we've already had the problem, so we know what to fix.
Yeah. Well, the difference, I think, between you, Greg, and Mickey and me is that we've got a wider spread. Mickey and Frank have a wider spread. You've got a 4-point differential.
Yep.
And, you know, the other thing, we talk about this a bit, even though we don't gamble. Unlike last week when the line dropped from 6.5 Oklahoma State to 2.5 Oklahoma State over the week, the line was set on Sunday at -3 Iowa State. And when we went on air, it was still, I checked, it was still -3. It stayed pretty steady. So let's see. I've got a wide spread, 35-18. It's going to be tough maintaining the offensive dominance, but that, you know, a couple of weeks ago we said, what's the identity? And the identity we know is rushing, and that's our signature, that's our fingerprint. So can we continue that? We need more out of our wide receiver room, especially Bray and Fox and Gallagher. We know what Clement can do because we've seen it. Cole Taylor has been there when we need him. Consistent play from the defensive line is really critical against this team. And I think Mickey's right. Iowa State shows different formations than we're, I think, used to or typical. And so you got to make adjustments on the fly. And I might mention one person. His name is John Haycock. John Haycock is not a name you hear a lot. John Haycock is a defensive coordinator at Iowa State. And if you ask anybody in the business, they will tell you he's almost, I wouldn't say godlike, but he is highly respected. And he's been at Iowa State, actually came from Youngstown State, where he was the head coach. And he's been with Matt Campbell, who also was in Ohio at Toledo as head coach. And they work hand in hand. Campbell has a tremendous faith in Haycock, and it's that defense at Iowa State we got to be worried about. And we've got to see more of what we saw in Stillwater from the defensive backs. Greg said that. Time of possession, which is so critical, was 43-17. Last week, I don't think it's going to be like that this week. Iowa State can't score if they don't have the ball, and West Virginia has to continue that. They have a very good kicking combo in a field goal kicker and a punter. Coach Brown talked about the two. I think this may be a game that Michael Hayes wins.
Right.
He's been great, but I could see him kicking a late field goal to win the game, 35-18. And we've got other comments here. Let me see. Here's Joey. If WVU can keep that secondary in line against these awesome wide receivers and quarterbacks, we saw that before. I thought that was a new one.
Yep.
Here's Timothy giving his plug for the simulation. It is good. Another comment by Shannon. Yeah, let's hope Iowa State's due for an off night.
Yep.
Yep.
Be a good time for it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good
Very
time
good.
for it.
Let me get this out of there.
Yeah.
And let me also get the comment out of there. Yeah.
All right.
There
we go.
Very good.
Guys, I tell you what, we've come to the end of time here, so going to bid everyone adieu. I want to say one more time what an exciting time it was talking to Tommy Bowden. Great stories, great to listen to, and Mickey, hats off to you too for some great questions and storytelling there, along with Tommy and about his father. It was very interesting as well. I appreciate everybody out there watching, and we hope that you enjoyed this as much as we did. Frank, before we sign off, you got anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, just some plugs.
There you go.
We will. It's going to be very late on Saturday night,
Yep.
but Greg, Mike, and I will be with you for the post game show. Probably won't start until 11:30.
Yeah, it'd be late.
At night because it's an 8 o'clock start. But we look forward to that. And then
Absolutely.
next Wednesday night we have another old hand in the coaching business. Thanks to Mike Dunlap organizing.
Tonight.
He's been everywhere. He was at Glenville State as both a player and a head coach. He's the current offensive line coach, as I mentioned, under Rich Rodriguez at Jackson State. He was at WVU twice as an assistant, also at FSU, just like Tommy. Same resume. FSU, Auburn, LSU, Mississippi State. And, of course, he's the dad of Clint Trickett, who was the quarterback for us about 10 years ago. So we're looking to have another really insightful guy in Rick Trickett next Wednesday night.
Yep. Should be another great show. Mickey, you'd like to say anything before we go off?
Well, just really looking forward to Saturday night. We have a pretty active Peach State Chapter Alumni Association here in Atlanta. And I want to take just a moment. Our president of that Peach State Chapter, a fellow by the name of Bill Toothman, who's been our chapter president for 25 years, is stepping down. Actually, officially a couple of weeks ago, he turned the reins over, and just want to say thanks to Bill and to all those regional and local alumni chapters that are out there to be at one of those game watches. And Frank, I was at your place watching basketball last February. There's nothing in the world like it, and it's just going to be so great Saturday night for all us to go arm in arm and sing "Take Me Home, Country Roads" after we beat the pants off of Iowa State.